iconic off-road automotive brand in the world, Jeep is all set to make an Indian debut this year. And this year also marks the 75th anniversary of the Jeep brand. To celebrate this landmark occasion, we went to Jeep's spiritual home, Moab, to get a deeper understanding of what this legendary brand is all about. We got to experience some rather unique terrain driving Jeep's 75th anniversary models. This terrain threw everything our way. However, this was hardly a challenge for the Wrangler, thanks to its big ground clearance, highly capable 4-wheel drive system and powerful 3.6-litre V6 petrol motor. Even the larger and more luxurious Grand Cherokee handled this terrain really well. And why wouldn't it, considering that nearly all of Jeep's cars are trail rated.
Now Jeep's engineers just explained to us that all these cars are trail rated. Now what this trail rating is, it's a system where they get a lot of factors into the equation and calculate a number out of 10. Now the top spec Wrangler, the Wrangler Rubicon, that is their most capable off-road car, that gets a rating of 10 for the 2-door, 9 for the 4-door. It takes into account factors like ground clearance, a breakover angle, approach angle, departure angle, water weighting, and a whole host of important stuff like articulation of the wheels, articulation of the steering, and calculates that trail rating number.
While driving the Wrangler and the Grand Cherokee was a huge highlight of Jeep's anniversary celebrations, we just couldn't resist getting our hands on a rather interesting little car from the company's lineup.
This is Jeep's latest subcompact SUV, the Renegade. And I think most of you will agree that this is a car that will make perfect sense in India. So let's take it for a quick spin and find out what it's all about. So while it is true that the Jeep Renegade is based on the Fiat 500X platform, you'll be hard-pressed to believe this once you get inside the car. All the design touches are typically Jeep in every way. You have this chunky steering wheel that looks like it's come straight from the Wrangler. Even on this multimedia system, you have this typical since 1941 Jeep badge on it. And you also get a chunky handle for the passengers to hold on to when you are off-roading. When you're driving on the road, the Renegade behaves like a large hatchback, which is a very good thing. It's comfortable, the seats are spacious, it rides very well, it's very pliant over bumpy roads. But when you take this car off the road, that's when the Jeep DNA really comes through. Now when you're driving around normally, it is a front-wheel drive car. But this being a Jeep, it has to have 4-wheel drive. And the system in this car is very capable. It's got a selector here which lets you choose what sort of surface you're driving on, and then the car can adjust the torque split between the front and rear axles accordingly. And you can also lock it in 4-wheel drive mode if you need to tackle some tricky terrain. So what do we think about the Renegade? Well, for one, it has great on-road manners, and when it comes to driving out on the trails out here in Moab, it could happily keep up with Jeep's more butch off-roaders. It's a car that makes perfect sense going up against compact SUVs like the Hyundai Creta, the Renault Duster and the Ford EcoSport. But whether Jeep gets the car to India, that remains to be seen. But I for one think they really should.
When the Renegade does eventually make its way to India, we expect prices to start around 11 lakh rupees. Very sensible indeed. But what happens when Jeep decides to stop being sensible? That answer could also be found at Moab.
Now each year, Moab also plays host to the Jeep Easter Safari, which amongst other things is pretty much an excuse for the boffins at Jeep to go nuts and come up with some mad concept cars. The difference this year, however, is that we get to drive them. So if you thought the Easter concepts were only about quirky and cool, well, Jeep can do mental as well. And this is the prime example of mental, the Jeep Trailcat concept. Now it's technically a Wrangler, but it's longer, it's wider, it's taller, running huge wheels. But that's not the mental part. The mental part is what's under the hood. A 6.2 liter Hellcat Hemi motor that makes 707 horsepower. Listen to this.
Every time you float the throttle on the Trailcat, the chassis squirms, unable to handle all that power, and it bucks up violently with a massive roar from its fairly non-existent mufflers. Driving this Jeep was a truly unforgettable, if rather manic, experience. There were a whole bunch of other concepts to sample. However, one in particular looked like it was specially designed for a slightly slower pace of life.
This is the FC150 or forward control. It's actually got a body from the 1960s without really any change to it, mounted onto a chassis of a 2005 Jeep Wrangler. So underneath it's modern, but outside it's got this old school rustic charm. And Jeep has gone a long way to add a whole lot of little trinkets all the way to make it even more appealing, like this vintage duck print roof liner. Then you've got a compass, a CB radio. Now all I need to complete my getup as an American farmer is probably a hat. I don't have one, so I guess this will have to do. How y'all doing?
The 75th anniversary celebrations wouldn't really be complete without sampling some of the cars responsible for putting Jeep on the map. This included the 1945 Willys Overland MP and CJ28. The military and civilian versions of what would eventually end up as the Wrangler. And starting with the 1949 Willys wagon, going through time to the 1983 Cherokee, the 1991 Grand Wagoneer, and finally to the 1993 Grand Cherokee. This proved to be the perfect history lesson about the origins of the modern day SUV.
Now 75 years is a very long time. It represents the time difference between this, the original Willys Overland, to this, Jeep's latest 75th anniversary Wrangler. Now a lot has changed in terms of technology, but the brand spirit pretty much remains the same. The spirit of adventure is still retained. And now with Jeep coming to India in the next few months, we can't wait to sample some of that adventure ourselves on our home turf.